Hello, everyone. And this time I say good morning because this is Coffee Weekly, and today's episode is about a concept or word called Sovmorgon, which means something like sleeping in the morning or a morning where you sleep longer than usually. And I'm here with the other wonderful host called.
Sheldon, and I just heard the topic of this episode, and I'm like, what is it? Because I'm not a native English speaker, and I live in Europe. And living in Europe, we are so bombarded with different languages. But even though some words like this one sound very foreign to my ears, so first of all, let's pronounce it again because I cannot pronounce it. So how do you pronounce it?
I mean, I also have to say I'm not native Swedish, obviously, but it's sovmorgon, which means sova means sleep, and morgon means morning. You can already see it's like some similarities between the Nordic languages and English, and maybe Germanic languages. But yeah, basically the word itself is not very special. It's just like sleep morning, but it's pretty much what it is. I mean, on a factual basis. So, as I said, you instead of waking up as you do pretty much most of the days every year, and you go to work or you do something, this time you don't. And I just thought this is a concept that actually has a lot of background to it and a lot of, you know, effects on you, on your environments, on people, how they perceive you when you do that. And I came across this concept. I think it was just, yeah, I was actually going to the office a bit later. I was like there at 11 a.m. or something. And then someone asked me, "Oh, you had a soup modern?" I was like, "I had a what?" And then he explained to me that, yeah, there was sometimes at school that they would say, "Okay, this day or this day a week, you can come in later." So we just start everything later. And this really, like, I don't know, this really resonated with me. Like, you can have such a profound impact actually on how that day is going to be, and then also the implication if you do it too much, what that happens. And I just love this whole topic. Do you have any first thoughts or reaction or anecdotes to this, Sheldon?
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts, and when you were describing the concept, I started thinking about a lot of things, and I was afraid to diverge too much from the subject. But the first thing that came to my mind is something very, very meta, which is the fact that people assume things. So one thing is that you should be awake in the morning. So where does this assumption comes from? Maybe like society created this idea that we have to start working at 8 a.m. and then in school you have to go early to school, or most of the cases. So I started to think about that. So why should we be why Sovmorgon is something, and it is something because people is assuming that you should be awake very early and you are not. So this was the first thing that came to my mind, especially because I this year I took some early flights, for example, and then I was hungry and nothing was open because for them it's morning, but for me in my time zone it was lunchtime. So the first thing that came to my mind was assumptions that maybe these things that I mentioned were things that should be talked in different episodes. But what do you think about like just the fact of having a time to be awake or to wake up?
I think this connects a lot with the concept of being a morning person or an evening person, because I think that is something that most people in society can maybe somewhat relate to. And as someone having been both, but I'm, mostly an evening person, I think that just the way that, society and especially work culture has just, I mean, always been involved over the last, I don't know, decades, centuries, is that you would probably have some animals waking you up, or the sun waking you up, which is pretty early at sometimes. I mean, most animals, like what do you call the rooster that does the good morning,
Yeah.
they wake up a bit even before the sun, and this can be in the summer, I don't know, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. So then I would say natural people, what they first do is they first get the work done And then when they have the work done, then they have time to socialize, to do things that they don't need to survive. But in today's society, or maybe also in not today's, but yesterday's society as well, it's not that we, I'm not gonna starve and my crop on the field is gonna freeze if I don't wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and go to work. So, I mean, of course, this is very privileged. I mean, there are people that have to wake up at 5 a.m., commute for like long distance, long time, do a hard job, come home just to barely make the rounds. So at least in my context or our context, there's not a necessity, especially when you think about like digital jobs or office jobs where you don't have to, you can work from home. It's not really important that it has to be done now, right there. I mean, there's some companies that are pretty much the opposite. They're like chasing and everything is important and deadlines and throwing work at you. But it's just not companies that I wanted to work with and have been actively avoiding in the last year. So for me, it's my environment, or also like the friends I surround myself with, is pretty much companies where, if you want to, you could have a Sovmorgon every day, pretty much. I mean, just get your things done. Maybe you have to work a bit later. But, you don't have this urge, or as you say, this assumption that other people are mad at you if you're not at your office. I mean, working at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., which I would say 9 out of 10 days, I'm definitely still sleeping. So yeah, I'm more like a evening person. What about you?
Yeah, I think you touched a couple of points that are very important to this matter, and the first being what works better for you as a person, and I think this can change over time, and this can also change depending on the situation and the society that you are at. And I'm trying more and more to learn about history and historical facts, because it's interesting to see how the society is being changing and being molded by the things that happen. For example, the fact that we had the Industrial Revolution and Henry Ford creating new ways of doing things, bringing innovation to how we do work, also shifted the society to become. I mean, it's not only those two factors, but there were more factors that changed us from working 12, 16, 18 hours a day to work 8 hours a day. And then this arrangement could be rethought or given a new shape now that we have technology and other stuff. And then there is the fact, the geographical fact. For example, I lived most of my life in Brazil, in a place where the seasons doesn't change a lot, so I have the same amount of daylight throughout the year. So what happened with me up until I was 24, 25 years old, I was a very early morning person, and I would wake up some days even 5:30, 5 to 6 a.m. And go for a run because the weather was nice at that time in Brazil. And nowadays that I live in a country that has well-defined seasons, and you can get like 19 hours of sunlight in July and 4 hours, 5 hours maybe of sunlight in December and January. I can see that my sleeping habits change as well. So I would sleep more now and less in summer. So those were some things as well that changed and were situational. So now what happens with me is that, so before I would wake up and in 5 minutes, I would change my clothes and go get my running shoes and go for a run. Now I take half an hour to cross the hall and come from my bed to my office. And still takes a half an hour because I have like my morning routine and I brush my teeth and I maybe sometimes I listen to some podcasts. And when you mention this term, and now I'm going to finish my whole monologue here. When you mentioned this term, Sovmorgon, which I butchered the pronunciation, it reminded me of another term that is in English, so it's easier for me. That is a term that is quite trending right now, I think, in the social media, especially TikTok, which is called slow morning. And it was a term introduced by my wife, and she was receiving this content, and she was like, what we are doing here every morning is kind of this thing that people say that is a slow morning. So basically, you wake up, you take things slow, you think about your day, you plan your day, you do a morning routine, you take some time for yourself. And it's kind of self-care as well, and taking care of your mental health and trying to avoid some anxiety. So it's kind of the same idea, but maybe with more concepts, maybe.
Yeah, I would say that if you were to translate it, it would pretty much exactly translate into slow morning. I think that's maybe even the exact translation. But yeah, this is the exact concept that I want to talk about slow mornings, because as you said, there is quite a good share of self-care into it. And I mean, of course, you relieve yourself of the stress. I mean, you wake up and not the first thought is like, oh my God, okay, work, what I have to do? Do I have any meetings, food? Oh my God, commute. No, you just like wake up and you let it be. You're just like, okay, maybe you listen to your body. Like, what does my body feel? Do I have a stretch? Do I want to go for a walk? Do I want to eat something? Do I just want to sleep more? Basically, you don't force yourself into it. You just let yourself happen in that sense. But this is also the exact same thing that I want to show from a different perspective. So, for example, in my situation, I was working in a place before where it was very relaxed, so there was barely any stress. So I had a daily stand-up every morning at 9:15, and I would wake up at 9 pretty much and sleep for another 10 minutes, and then 5 minutes before, like, get up, put on the clothes and hop onto the meeting, and then probably sometimes sleep even more, or sometimes just have breakfast and continue. But now it's more different. I mean, my stand-up is a bit later. It's 9:45, but people are much more in the office. So I have to get up. I live in the same city, but it's both in Stockholm, but it still takes me like half an hour door to door, which is not that bad. But for me, it's actually half an hour. And then, I don't eat breakfast after. So I have to, get up, have a shower, have breakfast, commute to work, pack my stuff and everything. So I think on the first day I got up at like 7:30, which is not late, but for me it was like, oh my God, I don't know when was the last time I set an alarm 7:30 to get to work in time. I want to be there at 9 a.m. And then now, after like my first 3.5 days, I realized, and I also knew that before, that this is actually a good thing. So there's a very good, healthy amount of good stress. So you force yourself to do something, and yeah, it might be a bit uncomfortable, but the positive benefit of getting things done, feeling the energy, getting endorphins is actually outweighing the comfort. So what I realized at the end of the day, it boils down to a ratio between how much days do you set an alarm, get up, do your basic routine that you do probably most days of your life, and how many days do you not do this routine. Because I think that somewhere of this ratio, there's like a Ballmer's peak for sleeping, slow mornings and normal mornings. And if I were to estimate where this ratio would be best, I would say it's probably like the Pareto principle, so 80%, 20%. So I would say if your regular routine is that you have a regular routine, so it doesn't have to be 6 a.m. in the morning. I mean, if that's for you, I know people do this and they're happy with it. Sure, go ahead. But hell, no for me. But at least like stick to something that is kind of predictable. But I also think, if you think of 20%, that would translate to one workday a week. I would probably, some weeks it would do more, but definitely do it. It doesn't have to be the exception, but it should be at least present enough that you feel the effects of it. That I was working also 4 days a week before, and then just having one day more, oh my God, it's a game changer. Because even when work is very stressful, it's just 4 days and you have a 3 days weekend, which is almost as long as the 4 days that you worked. And this makes your whole stress level and your ability to cope with situations that require a lot of energy, you will be very rested. Because imagine you have a normal 5-day week, like probably the majority of the population, or some even more, and you work Monday to Friday and you get a lot of things done. You go to the office maybe even 5 times or maybe 4 times. And well, Friday, maybe you're just like so done that you just fall home and sleep and don't do much. You have something called the Fredagsmys, which is like the Friday coziness. You just chill at home, watch a movie, order some food, and go to bed. That's actually a pretty established concept here as well. And then Saturday, maybe you do something during the day, you party in the night, and Sunday you just, you hang over. So basically, how much free time do you have Saturday during the day? It's not really that much. And so I think it's healthy and beneficial, and you will be more productive if you allow yourself to breathe some air, to sleep in a little bit and let your body decide what it needs. If you wake up and you're like, I gotta do something, oh my God, do it. But in my experience, if I know I can just stay in bed a little bit longer, I would do that for like, half an hour, 1 hour, 1.5 hours at most. But then I'm also like, okay, now I want to get up, but the whole day I feel like, oh, yeah, I just start with like so less stress levels. I'm just like more myself, I would say.
Yeah, I think the way what you're describing for me, it ties really well with the concept with the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it's quite a mouthful, this one. So the second habit is begin with the end in mind. It's quite an interesting concept. It sounds intuitive from the title, but it has quite some content to it. But one thing that I want to mention is make an analogy with running, especially if you're running for long distance. And by long distance, I want to say anything more than 10 kilometers or more, because when you reach around 10 kilometers, you start to feel the tiredness of the run, and you start to negotiate with yourself if you want to finish, and how like you start to manage your own resources, and it's really important, at least for me, to know where I am at and how much I have to finish. And transcribing this concept to my day, if I just wake up and start doing, sometimes I have the feeling that I haven't done anything, or that I have done too much, and at the end of the day, the real deal is not what I was thinking of. So having this low morning is a checkpoint for me as well, to not starting the day like just doing, but reflect on the previous day and reflect on what I have to do today, prioritize, and also understand if it's feasible to do everything that I want to do during the day. So for me, and sometimes I do that even subconsciously. I feel that I'm chilling in the bed, but my brain is actually prioritizing on its own. And sometimes I just wake up, I just get up on the bed and I'm like, okay, I need to do this, and that. And it sounds natural, but it's actually because I had this time of like laziness, and my brain could work on its own.
I have a question for you, because that also ties a lot into the work. I mean, the kind of work that you have. And I know that you have a rather unusual workplace, which is a fully remote, asynchronous workplace. Basically, in a nutshell, you have some task, but you decide when, where, if, whatever, just get it done. So this means I think you don't have any or many meetings at all, which means you have to set your own into this pace, which can make it a bit harder, because if you sleep in a lot, you might not have the urge. You're like, I don't really have to do it today or tomorrow or the whole month, So
Yeah.
how do you do this?
This definitely happens. It's something that I could talk about for like quite a good amount of time, because I've been experimenting. So I'm 1.5 years in this company, GitLab, and since I started, I've been experimenting, and also even before that, because I was working in another company that was in person, and then because of the pandemic, we went full remote, and by the time they wanted back into the office, I switched to a fully remote company. So I had a few scenarios of working from home. And the previous job, we had a meeting every day at 9:45, which was the stand-up. or the daily meeting, and that was my alarm, pretty much as what you said. So I used to have an alarm for 9:30, and I would never reach this alarm because my brain starts working like at 7:30, 8 a.m. I'm already awake, pretty much regardless of the time I went to bed. Even in the New Year's Eve where I went to bed in was 4 or 5 a.m. I still woke up 8:30 and went back to sleep again, but I woke up. Now that I have like 1 or 2 meetings weekly, and it's like in the afternoon for me, I pretty much don't have any alarm at all. So I wake up when I wake up, and this happens to be during the morning. I'm experimenting now, working in the evening as well to see if I can be an evening person. But definitely, it's experimenting. It's you have to be always aware of what you're doing. What you said, like for example, during this holidays time, I'm going to bed late, so it's happening that during the morning I feel more tired because I'm sleeping less, so I'm more lazy during these days. So I'm already feeling that I should take down on the Sovmorgon or the slow morning. So you have to be aware of the balance, because you can do it too much and you can damage your day-to-day productivity. But if I do it too little as well, it feels like I'm just putting down fires and I don't know what I'm doing. So I have to have like this balance, as you said, and it's been pretty helpful for me to have this checkpoint in the morning. And I also line up with a morning routine, which helped me set foot on the day. And sometimes I listen to some code, some YouTube, someone technical talking into my brains to kind of warm up my brain to my work. So there's a few things that I do to kind of start my day when I don't have like a hard start of the day. So I make my own start. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me as well. My closing thoughts, like experiment and be always aware of how are you reacting to the changes, because some changes might be good and some others might be not beneficial. So then you get to choose which changes make sense for your life.
That sounds very good. I mean, when I want to wrap it up, it's a bit harder this time because it really much depends on your context. So maybe I can take a perspective from a context that I'm usually not in. So I would assume that most work environments are pretty more strict. I mean, of course, during the pandemic, more places had to offer remote options and have now transitioned to some kind of hybrid working. But for some kinds of work, this is not possible, obviously. But I think, you know, the benefit or the goal, maybe also some of this, is that at the end of the day, you will perform better as a human in terms of how you feel, so your well-being, your emotional state, and in that sense also your ability to withstand stress or to achieve bigger goals. Because of course you can suck out all the energy and force someone to do something for a big amount of time, but for an extended amount of time you will not be happy, you will, I don't know, want to leave this place, or you will not perform as good, or you will get other issues that nobody wants, not you, not the workplace. So in that sense, maybe I want to encourage, or I mean, also like if you were to talk to a manager or someone that gives you work, it is a positive thing to embrace that, because of course on the paper, oh no, you could have worked those 2 hours in the morning, but this is just a very narrow and short-sighted view. If you think, okay, this person, they're supposed, it's in the contract, they should be in the office during the core work hours, and maybe it's not 100% the policy that they come in a bit later, but I see that these people, you know, they're more relaxed, they get the things done exactly as before. Maybe they get even more done with less errors, and they're more happy about it, they talk more about it, they, I don't know, incentivize colleagues to, I don't know, be more productive, engage conversations. So it has a lot of like positive effects. And I would say just try it out if you have the option, or do it sneakily. I mean, the excuse that always goes like, oh, you have an appointment or something. Well, maybe you just have an appointment with yourself. Nobody has to know what it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely just block some time on a calendar for if I just don't want to, I mean, if I just do something else, you know, And people just assume it's like something important. Yeah, it's important. Trust me.
Yes, yeah. And also, you don't need to disclose your every point of your personal life to your employer. It's fine.
Exactly. So there is a healthy balance, and you can not exploit that, but you can use that, and definitely try it out, see how you react. And but yeah, if you have the option to do it a lot, be careful that you don't overdo it. I've been there that I reached a point where I could just do whatever the fuck I want, but then I noticed, okay, I don't have the urge to do something, and I noticed that I'm just getting comfortable in the slow morning, and that it can take over, that I mean, there was a time I had naps every single day for like 1.5 hours, and I woke up technically at 9, but then I always napped until lunchtime, and then that's when I woke up, and then it was not good. So be careful when you notice these patterns that you start too late, because it will affect your sleep. You do have the best sleep recovery in the hours of like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. or something. So you should make sure that you are in a rested state before midnight, and that you get your 8 hours of sleep, and that your body does it, unless you're a person that needs less sleep and so on. But that's already enough to say. So I would say, see what options you have, try it out, and find your balance, find your ratio. It might be 80%, 20% for me. It might be 100%, 0% for someone else. It might be 50-50. I think it's pretty much individual. Go and find it out and see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's important to experiment and be aware, and because this means that you can optimize your life to your own optimal configuration, which works better for you, not as a global thing. Like right now, I'm a kind of more of a morning person. Right now, you're kind of more of a night person, but this can change. I think I changed some parts of my life. I think awareness is something that is quite interesting to use as a tool to improve your life. I guess that's it for today's episode. Leave a comment. What do you think about going sleeping in the morning a little bit and doing your stuff a little later in the day? And see you next week.
And for anyone who listens to this in the bed while being cozy in the bed, it's fine.
Yeah.
Take it easy. Wake up when you want. And see you next time.
See you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.